Hello and welcome to the Serra High School Football Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well.
You're doing well. So you had a big win on Friday night, October 7th, against the Bellarmine Bells. It was a little stressful that first. I was watching it actually on my phone, and I watched the first couple plays of the game, and the 7-0 lead made me nervous. How did it make you feel?
Like I thought I would feel. Like, this is Bellarmine High School. We're on the road. It's hard to play on the road against Bellarmine. We've had a long, rich tradition that dates back, decades.
Right.
And I wasn't surprised at all. I mean, and if it continues to happen against Riordan and everyone else that we're playing, I won't be surprised because this is a tough league. So, we talked a lot about coaches about starting fast and coming out the gates and being ready. And there's a lot of really good discussion that we had over the weekend about that. And while there's always a beautiful, euphoric unfolding of events that every team wants, like a 3-and-out, and then you block a punt, and then you score, and then they fumble the kickoff, and it's 14-0 before you can blink, or whatever euphoric beginning of a game everybody wants, or just fundamentals. Let's get a 3-and-out, maybe they get a first down, they punt it, we catch the punt, we have a nice drive, we don't turn the ball over. I mean, there's variances of how the image of a game starting. What's the start fast? What does that mean, right? So I like to think about things over the totality of the week or the totality of the game. Mm-hmm. So whereas we didn't start well, we definitely finished well.
Absolutely. And that's almost what matters most. It's a long game.
It's a totally long game. In the first, let's say of the 48 minutes, 42 of them did not go well. We had a fumble, and then we dropped a pass, and then we fumbled the ball again, and it was 4th and 28. And then we kicked it to Bellarmine, and Bellarmine really cares, and Jalal does a great job down there, and they drive the ball down the field, and we have 2 personal fouls on one play. That gives them 30 yards.
Right.
And now it's 7-0. And there's a death shadow over the whole first quarter because of how we started. We can continue on that downward trajectory, or we can gather ourselves, say, hey, that didn't go well. There's still 46 minutes left in the game, or whatever we have left, 42 minutes left in the game. What are we going to do with those 42 minutes? Mm-hmm. So, and frankly, I was in that kind of shadow of, what is this? And we've talked a lot about the personal fouls, and we've talked about it as a team, and now it's just simple. If it happens, then there's going to be consequences.
Right. Those little mistakes have big, big meaning and make big plays sometimes, right?
Right. Well,
big advantages.
Little mistakes for 15 yards are big mistakes.
Right.
And some of those little mistakes can lead to being ejected from games, and some of those little mistakes make Serra football look bad. And if people are going to continue to put themselves above the team and above what we're trying to accomplish as an organization of teaching love, brotherhood, and humility through doing things right, which we're not perfect, by the way. Right. So then there's going to be issues. There's going to be consequences, and that's just the way it's going to be. And I think I've done a poor job as the leader of the team of being the parent, of putting in some structure into negative behaviors on the field, and that's going to change. Mm-hmm. And so as we talk about the beginning of the game, all those sequences of event that I laid down, like a drop pass is not we don't want to drop passes.
Sure.
But those things happen. The other things
don't need to happen.
There's 2 major areas that I have an intent focus on moving forward, and that's effort, which is manageable by the individual or the team or the collective, whatever you want to say. Mm-hmm. But effort is a non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. If there's a lack of effort, you're out. If there's a lack of behavior and things that make us look like we don't talk about these things, then you're out. That means you have no self-control. That means there's things going on in your life that you're going to bring onto the field that hurts the other 80 people on the team and the people watching the game. And we don't want that image here at Serra. And if we are that image, then we need to change it. And because how we act and what we do is reality. We can sit in chapel, and you and I can sit here and have this wonderful podcast about theory and hypotheses. But at the end of the day, whatever actually happens is.
Right.
So regardless of the opponents, that's the focus of pretty much the rest of the year. Because if we leave this program, win, lose, or draw, with certain life lessons that can carry over into the future, then we've done our job here at Serra.
Right.
And that's as an English teacher and a history teacher myself. And if we don't do those things, then we're failing the kids. And I feel like at this point I've been failing the kids when it comes to that. And that's going to change. It's already changed. The message is out. Now it's public.
Right.
And, I'm standing on it, and so are the other coaches. Everyone supports it. And the deal is if something happens in the effort and behavior instance, then those players are going to be out for as long as I think they should be out.
That's good.
Could be a minute, could be a play, it could be a game. I mean, it could be the season. I mean,
depending on their choices.
It's and I just it's very important. And Serra football is way more than just going out and playing and tackling people. It's way more than that, and it needs to be treated that way.
Well, and I think that accountability is part of your formula. You've said this in other seasons and other times that I've read when you've been quoted or just in talking with you conversationally. I mean, the accountability is part of the alignment and part of the humility as well. They kind of all cross over. So I'm glad that you're, it's great that you're taking, making sure that that's something that you highlight and everything.
You can't just throw it up on the board.
Sure.
And everyone has these like core values, and we have the path of the spiritual warrior. One of them is personal accountability. But if no one's there to enforce then what is it? Exactly. I mean, we got all these rules. Like, what rule? Like, who's enforcing the rule? If no one's enforcing the rule, is it a rule? If no one's enforcing the values in the core values, is it a core value? I would say no. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to continue to dive into ourselves.
That's good.
I mean, as the season progresses, it's very, very human to get external and look around and just, that's the ego trapping us. And I want to dive back into who we are.
Yeah, and it is a pivotal time in the season. I remember this last year, too. I mean, you approach Halloween, the boys are tired. They've been working hard. They're getting to mid-WCAL season. They're shaping up right now, obviously undefeated and looking great from every aspect, except, of course, the ones that you're working on currently. But even then, from the outside, still looking really good. So I know that it probably is a really pivotal moment in terms of trying to highlight the core values of the team and moving forward. It was interesting. Like I said, I was watching the game on my phone, going back to Bellarmine, and it was so interesting to hear it being announced by Bellarmine, right? Mm-hmm. And they did such a great job of portraying all the things that you do and your coaches and the football program. So it was really cool to hear it from a more, I guess, subjective side, right?
Sure, sure.
But they really gave a lot of credit and accolades to our program as well, which I thought was really cool and really fair. But let's talk about the game in specifics. We did talk about the 7-0 start, which quickly ended with the defense and the offense both just showing immeasurable playing with a final score of 28-7. And do you want to bring anybody up? I know we've had Villa Roman, Weber, New. They all had great long 40+ yard touchdown passes handed to them. So.
Yeah, and I think Jalal even said it in the newspaper, which I did read this week. I did,
Yay.
Believe it or not. Yeah, I was curious. Yeah, I know. But Coach Jalal's quote was, "Look, they're a great team, and at any point they can strike." And so through our lethargy, we did have some strikes with Jay Webb, and we had Malawaki got going.
Oh, yeah.
And things started to go well. Obviously, it didn't score again.
Right.
And there was a hidden stat in there where Bellarmine did not get a first down in the second or third quarters. So they had first downs in the first quarter, first down in the fourth quarters, but not in the second and third. Which
hold them is amazing.
Which means as we're climbing out of this, the defense did a great job of making sure Bellarmine didn't extend that lead or chunk into it when we started to get the lead. So I thought that was a really cool stat. Coach Monsef dug that one up, which was nice. Yep. So no first downs in the second and third is great defense. And I think they had 140, 150 total yards offense. Mm-hmm. The defense was 3 for 4 this week. We didn't. Bellarmine, being a great team that they are, did not have any turnovers, so we had no takeaways. So we were 3 for 4 there. Offense, we were 3 for 4. We did not get our efficiency 12% goal. Because of the fumbles and some other things and a couple penalties and things that we could have done better to get us to 12%. We had 3 fumbles, and if we didn't have those 3 fumbles, there's that whole if thing, but whatever.
Right, those are painful.
We did. We didn't lose any of them,
right.
So we had 0 turnovers,
yeah.
but that counts against us. We're going the wrong way.
Right. Lost of yardage.
So we were at 12. We were at 14% there. Got the other goals there, and then on special teams we had 3 or 4 goals too. So we were 9 of 12 for the week, which is 75% goal completion.
Up from 65 last
week. Up from 65. 75 is, I wouldn't call it the standard. I mean, 100% is having a Jesus-like game.
I was just going to say, that's
perfect.
Back to the game you were talking about at the very beginning of the podcast, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, we've only done that
together.
one time. We've only done that one time, and that was 2020 St. Francis Serra. Everything just came together. It was very weird. And that was a 12 for 12 game. And
wow.
Yeah, that was a great gift that the 2020 team gave us in our shortened season. But they had the only perfect game in terms of our goals. So, yeah.
It's kind of fitting that it was that year, too. They needed something like that. It's a bad
year.
It
was a bad circumstance.
Definitely.
But they did not treat it that way, which they'll always be very high up in the
special.
heart. Yep.
Awesome. Well, one thing I wanted to talk about this podcast real briefly is, I watch, obviously I have a bird's eye view to your practices, and they're run so efficiently and organized. Mm-hmm. And, the captains, obviously, they step up and they have everybody in line, for warm-ups. But in terms of, I'd like to know how you keep your players so strong and how you organize your practices, literally on the field. When do they know where to go to where? I mean, it looks like it really looks orderly. So
yes.
We want to know.
Yes. Okay. So we lift 3 times a week, and then we have another group that lifts four times a week. And so let's say we have a Friday game, we lift Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. One of the cornerstones of our program is to get stronger throughout the year. Mm-hmm. So we spend all this time, let's say some of these kids in January that only play football, a lot of guys do, 80% of our team does other stuff. But if those 20 kids start lifting in January, why would you stop lifting in August?
Right.
It makes no sense. A lot of people do that, though, because you have to install your plays, you got to watch film, you got to study the opponent, blah, blah, blah. For us, that's not an option. So we lift 3 times a week, and then kids that don't play quite as much, they lift 4 times a week.
Okay.
Get
them stronger.
So we start right after school, and we have a lot of off-campus coaches, and we don't start practice till 4 until the sun. We don't have lights, so the sun is an issue later. But we start at 4 o'clock, so they got to school at 2:30, and then we lift right away, and they get a nice 45-minute lift with Coach Carson and Coach Esau. They get them going, and that includes a functional component, health component, staying flexible. And that's kind of the warm-up before practice with some core lifts, so we can continue to get strong and stay healthy throughout the season. So that's number one. Then we have a 2-hour practice. We start at 4, we end at 6. Sometimes we bleed a little bit on that, and that's not good. So this time of year, we start at 4, we end at 6. And if we go over, then I just stop practice, we're done. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Monday we go in shells, which is helmets and shoulder pads. Mm-hmm. Tuesday we go full pads. Wednesday, helmets only. Thursday, helmets only. And we brought in 2 helmet-only practices. That third practice is helmets only. Just to, we have this philosophy that less is more with football. This is not a sport, a game. And if I could not practice, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. That's not possible. Right. But if you can not practice, that'd be great, because then you can't have a broken finger in practice and all these other things that happen in practice. It's terrible. And it's a tough game, but you also have to practice it. So we reduce contact as much as humanly possible while still hopefully being able to execute the fact that you have to have contact to play football. So that's our structure of our gear, okay? And then in terms of how we go through that 2-hour practice, Coach Monsef is very, very, very detail-oriented when it comes to how things are structured, and our offense and our special teams match that. Generally start with special teams, and then we'll have a flex period where we're doing some installations. That's a 15-minute period, and it's either an offensive or defensive emphasis day. One of the things that I think listeners should know, we are a full platoon team, which means half the team plays offense, half the team plays defense. Jabari Man, you are a linebacker, but he also plays some running back. Right. So there are some kids like that, like Jabari.
2 ways, yeah.
Right? Last week he only played defense, and he had 16 tackles and some sacks and whatever. So
fun to watch.
This is very important. This is a great segue when it comes to philosophy. The philosophy of football, and you watch the NFL, Nobody plays two ways. It's not a game built to play 160 plays in a game. Your body's not meant for that. So programs that have the ability and can platoon, you split offense and defense, what you're saying is this kid, if he plays this position all the time, he can learn one thing, learn it all year, and get better doing that. And also in the game, he'll have more energy to execute that position. Not all programs have the luxury of doing that. We don't even have the luxury of doing that because a lot of our guys play two ways. But we try not to. So if you look at Jabari, unfortunately, we lost Coach Shu now. We call him Coach Schumacher.
That's right.
Because he coaches our running backs now, which is fantastic. He's going to be a great coach if that's what he wants to do. He's the best.
Great kid. I love him.
Comes out. He's got drills. I mean, he's really doing a great job.
That's awesome.
Under, tough circumstances. But he didn't eject. He didn't eject emotionally. He's out there on his crutches. His ACL surgery he's going great. Recovery's going great. But he's there every day coaching, which we need. We have a shortage of coaches. So Coach Shu.
Amazing. I love it.
So when we lost Coach Shu, player Shu, and now Coach Shu, that led to, some domino effect where a guy like Jabari, Danny Niu had a great game at running back last week as well.
Absolutely did.
But it takes away from what they can do on the other side, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that whole mindset is something that programs have to commit to. And then you can say, okay, if we're committing to a platoon or not committing to a platoon, then let's say we are like we do at Serra, then you have offensive coaches and you have defensive coaches. And then what are those offensive coaches doing in a 2-hour period? What are the defensive coaches doing in a 2-hour period? And to make this a little bit shorter than going through everything, we have group periods, we have group competition periods, offense versus defense, we have special teams periods, we have some conditioning, and we go home.
Wow. See, I'm even confused now.
Yes, and that's why I didn't want to, I think really to not confuse you, it would be more of understanding like, okay, my son plays corner, right? And my son plays safety or linebacker.
Right.
Most of the time, if not the entire game or the day, he's practicing being a great corner.
Yeah.
On the defensive side of the ball. And then there's certain structures and building blocks, fundamentals, where you step, where you place your hand, how do you tackle? We practice that every day. Fundamentals, we call them EDDs, everyday drills. We do that every day. Then there's an alignment period. You have to know where to align. What does Riordan do? Oh, they do this. How do we align to it? There's different strategies each week. We have a period for that. And then as the day moves on, we build on top of that. The groups come together, and then we practice using our go routes, which I think is one of the best things we have.
So cool.
It's the
Why
little
don't you explain that?
iPhone-looking things. We draw the plays of the offense. We draw the plays of the defense. We upload it to some technology called Go Routes. You look, the kids, I hit a button. It sends the play to their little iPhone-looking thing. It's not an iPhone, but it looks like one. You look down, and the play's there, and if you're the green X, or the X is actually blue, then you know what to do. Oh, and so you don't even have to huddle up. You don't have to talk.
Right.
It's all picture-driven. It's very efficient.
Yeah, you get through a lot, I'm sure.
We get through a lot in a short amount of time. We've been averaging 30 plays a day in team on offense, given with the structure. There's no huddles. It's very efficient. And I think we get more reps than most people because we use the technology. And then we have the films, and then we study the films and send the cut-ups to the guys at night.
Wow. I guess I have two last questions about the practices because, so one is having 22 seasons under your belt at Serra, right? Mm-hmm. Do you feel that do you take things like certain times of the year you're going to focus on this? Like, do you take those kind of, experience,
Sure.
I guess your experiences into play when kind of coming up with the lesson plan or whatnot, practice plan?
I wouldn't, every year is different. So I think the way we structure things has changed over time. Efficiency, particularly as we head into the time of the shadows when the sun's going down. And I think it's kind of a weird blessing when it comes to Serra. We don't have lights. Everyone knows that. We've talked a lot about Helios and playing in the day and that sort of stuff. But, for us, it's a forced efficiency. If it's dark, you cannot practice.
Right. That makes sense. Or that's when the injuries will really happen, right?
Yeah. We're in the dark right now. I'm sorry, guys. We were practicing in the dark. But so, it doesn't get dark early. It gets dark, early in the season.
Right.
Later in the season, it gets dark. For us, when it's 5, you can't practice. You're done. So how do we take those hours of daylight and make them the most efficient that we can? Because we don't have a choice. And I think that's helped us over time.
I'll bet.
Yeah, because I am under less is more. I don't really support all-star games. You know, I know people like to play in them, but less football is better. And obviously we had that deal back in 2015 when I forfeited that whole deal, which was, I'm proud of that because less football is more. And, you know, it was a tough situation, and we can talk about it some other time, but I don't regret it at all. You know, because we didn't play a constellation football game, 0 kids got hurt. 0. We didn't play, right? So if you don't play in a game that doesn't really mean anything, an all-star game might mean something to you, and I'm saying that all of them are bad, but you can't get hurt in a game you don't play in.
Right.
And the body is the most important thing for our kids, the heads and knees and ankles and everything that these kids have. I mean, I have 2 boys. I want them to be healthy. And so that also goes into how we think about practice, right? And Coach Peralta, we had some practices that just went a little bit long. We're playing these great teams, and there's a lot of adjustments and all this stuff. Practices started getting long. People get tired.
Right.
You know, we want happy employees. You know, happy employees don't grind over the desk all day long because we're miserable. We want, you know, firing on all cylinders as much as humanly possible for a brief amount of time. And then maybe get on a stand-up paddleboard.
Right.
Go live
Do
your
something
life
else.
all happy.
Yeah, right.
Right? And then you go back to work and you're, I'm in. So
Focused.
anyway.
Yeah, focused when you're on, right? I mean, essentially is what you mean.
Exactly.
And then my last question with practice is, like, if there isn't, like say, in the last game, there were, like you said, a couple fumbles, right? Like, is that something, like, do you do takeaways from games, or do you kind of know, I mean, any athlete knows when they've made an error or, you know, done something incorrectly. Is it something that they just learn themselves, or do you then implement, like, some of the practice for that recovery, I guess?
Great question, Amy. That's why we grade every film. So we grade by position every film. We talked about, I think we were 83% this week as a team. Offense or defense was 88. Offense was like 79.
Okay.
But we graded at an 83% as a team. So that requires a coach looking at that and giving a grade. As I'm looking at that, let's say, Amy, you're playing safety, and you did your play. You either did it right or wrong. We make it very black and white. If you do it right, you get a 1. If you did it wrong, you get a 0. Okay, to make things easy, if there was 100 plays in the game and you got 91s, you would have a 90%. Okay, you graded out a 90%. But in those 10 plays, you did something wrong. So let's focus on those 10 plays. Let's put that into practice. I know exactly what you did wrong because I watched you do it. Okay, we're gonna own it. And in those 10 plays, you stepped with the wrong foot. So this week in practice, I'm going to focus on you stepping with the correct foot.
Very cool. Okay, so it's corrective as well. Yeah.
Very, very much so, and it builds off of the narrative of what we attempted to do in the game. So we have a narrative. We're going to run a screen because we think this corner can't split the double team. The corner split the double team on our first screen against Bellarmine. He did a great job. We have 2 guys. They have 1. Shouldn't happen. So this week we worked more on blocking 1 guy in a double team.
I see. Okay.
Okay, so they both got 0s on that play. So yes, your answer is absolutely yes. We do take the lessons that we learned, the successes and the failures of what we learned, and apply it to schemes, apply it to practice, apply it to fundamentals. This is the time of year we've played 6 games. I asked a question of Coach Bell. I want to know the answers to the following questions. What are we good at? What are we bad at? We have enough data to know that.
Sure. At this
Same
point.
thing with Coach Monsef. What's a good call? What's a bad call? If it's a bad call, throw it out. If it's a good call, let's get better at it.
Exactly. Good. Well, interesting. Well, thank you. I just didn't mean to digress into practice, but it is, I see them already here today, and they're, you know, having at it. So it's kind of interesting to see what you do. So Saturday we play Riordan at 2 p.m. And how is Riordan looking, and what do you know about this team, and what are we up against?
Well, it starts with Adir Ravapati, who's the new head coach there.
Okay. How many years has he been there?
1.
Oh, very new.
Very new.
Brand new.
This is Adir's first year, and he built a monster powerhouse at Menlo Atherton.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he was the head coach at Menlo Atherton, and they're still having success down there. But when Adir was there, they were top of the food chain in the CCS because of how much of a great coach he is, how much he gets the kids to believe in themselves, how much he gets them going in the classroom, the culture that he builds.
Very cool.
And he's doing that right now. He's pounding nails into the foundation of the program, and you can see flashes of where he wants to bring the Crusaders. And so that concerns me. And they have great players. They have guys who can play. They have guys who can run. They have guys who can tackle. They have they're young. They have a freshman quarterback, which is very rare in our league.
Yes.
And forward thinking, he'll be a senior someday. That's scary. He's a freshman right now. He's learning. Yeah. You know, he's learning. He's making some mistakes. He's doing good things. Like, you can see what Coach is trying to build over there. And that's just something that is the reality of the situation. And we know that that Riordan is on the up. And that's a testament to Adir and how he has assembled his coaching staff. He's got a great staff, and the school's behind him. So it's look, this is the WCAL, and you go to sleep, you lose a game, and that's okay. Yeah, it's not okay. But you know what? If it has to happen, then maybe that's what wakes up a football team. And I've been saying that all year. I mean, in this position, ego's the enemy. It is what it is. Exactly. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of it. And so hopefully we do dive into ourselves. We focus on Serra, and then we won't have to worry about everything that Riordan's going to throw at us besides schematics. But if we fight ourselves every week, it's hard enough to beat Riordan if we have to beat Serra too.
That's a really good point, actually.
Let's not fight. Let's not beat Serra. Like, we have to beat Serra. We got to beat Serra in the classroom. We got to beat Serra with our personal relationships. We got to beat Serra with personal fouls. Like, we got to beat Serra. Like, it's really hard to win a game against an opponent when you're also beating yourself every day. So that's really where that's my whole concept of how we started this podcast.
Exactly. No, that's true.
And if we have to do that, then you're out. You're out. Someone else will go in who's not going to, try to beat Serra first. Like, let's put someone in there who's buying into what we're doing.
Right. Team.
Yes. So.
Awesome. Well, it's going to be an exciting game. I'm excited to go. And I just wanted to bring up one more thing before we go, and that is October 22nd is Poly Day. I saw the shirts on the boys. I think
we should have had one.
I know.
Dang it.
You got to wear one next week. They're beautiful shirts. I love them. And they're $30 going to be sold on October 20th at 2 p.m. for students at Mary's Courtyard. And just about Poly Day in general, there's a lot of planning and preparation that that team is doing. It's amazing. This year will be... they are bringing it this year more than I have ever seen it. So do you have anything to put in? Or
before this, you asked about the history of it. The Totola and Savello families way back in the day, 2002, they approached me and said, hey, what if we had like a Polynesian celebration day? I said, sure, that sounds fun. What is it? What do you want to do? Like, hey, we can roast some pigs. We can celebrate the Polynesian culture, which is what I've learned, rooted in love and family and supporting one another and faith. I'm like, okay, let's do that. And it's just grown. And we've done it every year, I think since 2002, maybe 2003. And it's become a tradition here at Serra where it's a really festive day. And we celebrate the Polynesian heritage, and we make a T-shirt. This year we have a hat that we made.
Oh, really? Okay.
We have a hat that may or may not go on sale. But we've worn it. A couple of coaches worn it. Like, I want that hat. I want that hat. I want that hat. Sadly, I don't have a lot of them, so maybe supply and demand fits in here.
There you go.
So if someone wants a hat, it might cost you some money. That's a fundraiser. But anyway, they're very, very nice hats. And I got the idea from Pepperdine. Pepperdine has one of these hats. It's got kind of a flowered print on it, a Polynesian print. They threw a P on it. I'm like, man, that'd be sick for Poly Day. So I stole it from Michael Beard.
I got to see this hat.
It's really cool. And so, it's just realistically, we celebrate all the kids on our team, and we love all the kids on our team. But this has just been a tradition that we've built at Serra, where we celebrate our Polynesian heritage, our Polynesian families. And I've always been like, I'm not going to say no to a great idea that's rooted in love and family and support. So.
Exactly, and supporting some of the cultures that we have on our team. It's just an amazing day. There's tons of delicious food, and I think the freshmen have been practicing their haka.
Yes,
in a very strict environment.
Freshmen and JVs, they did up downs the other day for doing the haka wrong.
Oh, I love it. Okay, good.
Yeah, no, this arguably.
I heard it's strict this year. Which is great.
No, it is a no nonsense type of deal, and if you study the haka, understand where the haka comes from. It's a religious thing, and so our haka coaches this year are kind of
making sure they get it right.
Yeah, that's right. Because if you don't do that, it's blasphemy.
Right. So, yeah, exactly.
Which I appreciate.
And that's our halftime entertainment, right? So is that wonderful? Well, again, October 22nd for Poly Day, but let's see you all out there on Saturday at 2 p.m. at Riordan.
Let's go.
So go Padres. Thanks, Coach.
Go Padres. You're welcome.